Hey, Gov Kids. If you were gone on Friday, this video is for you because lo and behold, Mr. Tobin, our sub, was a history teacher. He came and talked to me. He was like, "Yeah, speak your teacher stuff." I said, "Sure," but if you were gone, you missed it. And so I want to just quick hit a couple of things with Bill of Rights for you guys, so you have everything you need to complete your activity, which is the you be the judge thing. So let's go through this real quick. Fifth through 10th Amendments. We'll try and do this as fast as humanly possible here real quick. So one, Fifth Amendment, a couple big things that are in that big long text, probably the longest text out there. But number one is something called grand jury. So a grand jury is simply a special public jury, okay, of people that will decide really major cases. We're talking like murders and that kind of stuff. And all the grand jury does is decide if there's enough evidence for a trial or not. Doesn't have to be evidence to prove guilt or innocence or whatever, just evidence enough to prove that there should be a trial. Essentially showing that the person who is on trial is associated in some way, shape, or form, or was at the location of the incident that took place. That's a grand jury. Okay, so you hear the word grand jury, that's what that means. Double jeopardy. You cannot be tried for the same crime twice if you're found not guilty. So the OJ trial is a great example. The OJ trial, if you don't know about it, it's a great Netflix series about it. Watch it. But the OJ trial is about OJ Simpson, who was accused of killing his ex-wife and her new boyfriend, and he was found not guilty. Now, later on, he published a book saying, if I did it, and he was also found to be, by a civil trial, to be liable, to be responsible for their deaths. Now, even though this stuff came out later on, OJ could never, ever, 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 ever be tried for the same crime twice. Now, there's stuff with federal and state law in there, but it's a whole other story. But you cannot be tried twice for the exact same crime. Now, it doesn't say it's not a civil issue or another charge can be put on there. But if you're found not guilty, now if the trial is just canceled or the trial is just ended or charges are dropped, you can be recharged. But if you're found not guilty, you cannot be tried twice. You cannot be forced to remain testify against yourself. So in the Miranda rights you see on TV cop shows, this is you have the right to remain silent type thing. You are not required to testify yourself or talk to the police at all. If you are arrested or if you're in custody, you can say, I have a right to remain silent. This came from a case in 1961, I believe, or 57. It was called Miranda v. Arizona, where a man, last name Miranda, was accused of a sexual assault, and he was arrested by the police. He was put in a room and interrogated for hours on end until he eventually confessed to the crime. Well, lo and behold, he didn't know that in his right, he didn't have to testify against stuff. You can say, I plead the fifth, they stop questioning you, and things are done. And so that's where that whole thing comes into of I plead the fifth, is you can remain silent, not talk to the police, not talk to a stand, because you have a right to not incriminate yourself. Due process. This is so important. Might be the most important thing in this entire amendment or entire Bill of Rights. And that is every single person, doesn't matter how much money you have, how much power you have, how much anything you have, is treated the exact same way under law. If I'm a movie star, rock star, or a homeless dude in a box living in a van down by the river, we get the exact same kind of trial. Nobody gets any kind of special treatment. And that is what it says under due process. Due process means everybody gets the same kind of trial. And lastly, your private property cannot be taken away without fair compensation. The fancy term for this is eminent domain. The government can take your property. They got to pay you for it, though. So let's say we're building a road. My house is in the way. I say, nope, not going to sell my house. They can take it if they say they need it, but they must pay me a fair price for my property. So that's Fifth Amendment, guys. A lot of big stuff in that one. Huge one, especially in terms of your trial rights. Definitely want to know those, okay? Next one, Sixth Amendment, same deal. All about your trial rights. Fifth and Sixth, all trial rights. So Sixth Amendment, super important. Two things in here. You have a right to a trial by an impartial jury. So a jury cannot be leaning one way or the other on the trial. And during jury selection, they go through so much time to make sure that every single juror will be impartial. If you know the jury or the jury knows the person, they have to make sure they say they can be impartial. I know fellow teachers who have had to go and serve on a jury for their former students, and they were said, based off being this kid's teacher, if they can or cannot be an impartial juror. And so a jury must be impartial of regular people. Trials must be public. You can't have a secret trial. Secret trials would kind of defeat the purpose of that whole due process thing, because if you don't know what's going on. All trials must be public. You can walk into a trial and watch it anytime you want to if there's room. Right to a speedy trial. They can't hold you for trial for a long time. Instead, you must have if you request a speedy trial, they must give you a speedy trial, a trial that happens right away. And so that's kind of where that whole thing falls into. A lot of times, otherwise they could say, we're going to hold you for trial, and it could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years where they're holding you for trial before your trial actually happens, which would be kind of BS. You know what I mean? So that's what they put it here in the Sixth Amendment. Your right to be informed of charges against you. If a police officer picks you up and puts you under arrest, they have to tell you why. They can't just say, yeah, I'll tell you later, right? I believe the rule is that police can hold you for 48 hours. They must charge you with something. They must tell you what you're charged with. They can't just say, no, whatever. You were just charged with whatever. They must tell you what your charge is. They can't just hold you without reason. So if you're being arrested, they got to tell you why or what you're being held in suspicion of. Going forward here, you have the right to face your accusers and bring witnesses in your defense. So this basically says that whoever's accusing you of the trial must be present, or their lawyers must be present. So if it's the state accusing you, they must be present. If it's a civil trial, someone's accusing you of something, they got to be present, and you can bring witnesses in your defense. You're allowed to defend yourself with evidence and with witnesses. So in some countries, that's not so the case. You know what I mean? And so you have to have that right to a witness and to a defense trial, that kind of stuff. Right to an attorney is a big one. And so right to an attorney comes out later on in a case called Gideon v. Wainwright. This guy, last name of Gideon, had robbed a store. He was poor, he needed money, that kind of stuff, and he got arrested for it. And when he went to trial, he could not afford a lawyer. And so he lost the trial. Well, he appealed, said, well, sir, judge, I didn't have a lawyer. Well, the judge says, why not? He goes, I was waiting for you to give me one. It's my right. He goes, we don't do that. And the case went all the way up to the Supreme Court. So essentially, it's where the whole, if you can afford a lawyer, we'll get you one. There's something called public defenders today, and their whole job is to represent people who don't have lawyers, and so, or cannot afford a lawyer. So you can apply to have a public defender, and they can help you out and defend you in your trial. And so that's where all these trial rights come into, guys. So Fifth and Sixth Amendment, man, you got to know these. It doesn't matter what's going to happen. I'm not saying anybody's going to get in trouble or get arrested or whatever, but, you know, stuff happens, and it's always good to know what your trial rights are so that you can fairly participate in that trial, whether it be you as a person who is on either side of an issue. So definitely make sure you got these down, okay? Seventh Amendment, bunch of law stuff involving $20. Basically says that if you want to, you can have a civil trial. So if you sue somebody, right, let's say, you know, somebody hits your car and you sue them for damage, or somebody eggs your house and you sue them for damages, whoever it might be, okay? Somebody, you loan somebody money, they don't pay it back, whatever, okay? If it's a case of more than $20, you can ask for a jury trial. Now, jury trials are cost you money, you got to pay for it, but you know, they picked $20 because back then in 1787, $20 was a heck of a lot of money, and that's why. But just that you can have a jury trial in a civil case. Typically, civil cases, unless they're huge ones, okay, are done by a judge in small claims court. That's less than, I think it's $500 or $1,000, depending on what state you're in. And that's where you have like the Judge Judy or Joe Brown kind of things. That's what that kind of whole thing falls into. Eighth Amendment, you guys have heard this one a lot, but excessive bail, punishment, that kind of stuff. Essentially is that if somebody is arrested and convicted, the punishment must fit the crime, right? The time you do must fit your crime. The crime's got to fit the time. Don't forget that. Time's got to fit the crime. One of those things, right? You know, this also comes down to things like torture and abuse and that kind of stuff. Corporal punishment, like beatings for crimes, that kind of thing. It's all kind of falls into the same deal here. Big debate here is death penalty, if it's cruel and unusual or not. And the Arkansas case comes up where the lethal injection, the person was convulsed and those kind of things. If it's cruel and unusual, those kind of deals, where the Eighth Amendment really comes into. But essentially, you know, the time you serve or the punishment you have must fit the crime that you did. So you're not getting like an $18,000 fine for jaywalking. You're not put in prison for 6 months or prison for 10 years for a speeding ticket, that kind of thing. Last two amendments to do with your rights, okay? And it's kind of a big deal, and they get forgotten a lot, but something to really think about. One is the Ninth Amendment. So basically, your rights don't stop at amendments 1 through 8. If it's not listed there, you still have rights. So these are things like, you know, life and marriage and careers and those kind of things that might be on that list. And there are a lot of rights that are not listed that are still protected for you. Voting rights, all those kind of things are on there. 10th Amendment, you already know this one. This is the Federalism Amendment. We've studied this before. We looked at it a lot this year, but a little refresher is that if something's not in the Constitution, it goes to the states. The big debate for the Constitution when they signed it was, is the federal government too powerful or not powerful enough? And this was definitely a compromise to get those who thought that the federal government was too powerful to make sure that they know that if it's not in the Constitution, the states deal with that. Little things, schools and road signs, those kind of deals that they have there. Guys, that's 10 amendments. If you were gone Friday, hopefully you watched this. I hope, right? Now go and do the You Be the Judge. The PowerPoint is online too. Don't forget that. You need to go back and reference it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see y'all Monday. You guys are awesome.